Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we're going to be covering a brand new company on the channel. The name is Greenwave Technology Solutions. There's a lot to talk about with this organization, but before we get into it, please take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. And let me know in the comment section below if you've heard of Greenwave before, if you're currently holding shares, and what your outlook is on this company moving into next year. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Greenwave Technology Solutions Incorporated, trades on the NASDAQ in the States under the ticker GWAV. Now this is midday on Wednesday, September 13th. You can see the company is down about 6% on the session, or 5 cents per share, currently sitting at about 78 cents. Super low market cap on this one, under $20 million. And if we look at a 1-year chart, or I guess a 6-month chart more specifically, you can see we were really trading in this 79-80 cent range back at the start of May. We saw a big spike in the month of August. So August 8th, we saw a high of $1.10, and Greenwave Technology has now pulled back to that support level around 79 or 80 cents. Now, as you're going to see in today's presentation, there's a lot of catalysts on the horizon for Greenwave, including some facility expansions and a new focus on what's known as downstream processing, which we're going to talk about. I'm really excited to get into this one, and to kick off today's video, I wanted to jump over to the company website. So as you can see, scrap is the new precious metal. Obviously, Greenwave Technology Solutions is focused on recycling or scrap metal recycling. And if we continue to scroll down, you can see they call out an inflection point in Greenwave's growth, as they're now operating 13 metal recycling facilities in Virginia, North Carolina, and Cleveland, Ohio. So over the first half of this year alone, they generated $18.5 million in revenue, $1.23 million in cash flow from operational activities, again in the first 6 months of 2023, and a roadmap or plan to aggressively expand their footprint or number of locations by rolling up independent, profitable scrapyards in the coming months. So that's exactly what they mean when they talk about this inflection point in the company and in the recycling space itself. Now, the next thing you'll note on the company website is a specific call out of this downstream processing system and really applying a new technology lens to the scrap metal industry. We're going to talk about some of these numbers. You can see an average expectation of $38,000 of revenue per business day with margins in excess of 80%. So obviously a very exciting opportunity for the company. And this actually only commenced operations back in July of this year. So hold that thought, and we're going to talk about that downstream processing again as we move deeper into this video. Now, the next thing I wanted to call out, you guys, is some specific numbers here in relation to Greenwave Technology Solutions. So we already mentioned 13 locations, which they plan to expand, $34 million worth of revenue for last year. So if you compare that to the $18.5 million they generated in the first half of 2023, you can see they're on pace to exceed last year's overall revenue, not to mention those downstream processing additions, which we just talked about commencing in July. They raised $15 million worth of capital in August of this year, so really setting them up for some of that expansion opportunity. And they currently have about 150 employees as of the 8th of August. Now, if we jump into the press releases section of the corporate website, I'll leave this linked in the video description below. You can see they put out a shareholder update on the 3rd of August. And this was really interesting because it again talks about that downstream processing system, which commenced operations and is on track to exceed $1 million per month in revenue, which works out to about $38,000 per business day. And as I already called out, margins in excess of 80%, which is absolutely phenomenal. Now, based on that, they expect to generate positive cash flow from operations and positive EBITDA for the current fiscal year. And you can see they also talk about expanding their metal processing capacity by the addition of a second automotive shredder, which is expected to come online in the 3rd quarter of this year. Now, the CEO, Danny Meeks, went on to say we are at an inflection point in Greenwave's growth trajectory with the downstream processing system now online and the new infrastructure set to come online in coming weeks. We believe Greenwave's revenue growth will accelerate growing into 2024 in addition to increasing profit margins. We are incredibly grateful for the trust and support of Greenwave's shareholders. We are continuing to execute on our strategic growth initiatives and look forward to reporting back on our progress. So you can definitely sense the optimism from the leadership team at Greenwave as these new revenue streams are now being folded in and coming online for the organization. And they then go on to give some detail about that second automotive shredder and some facility upgrades that they're doing at their Cleveland location. Now this is where it gets super interesting. If we jump over to this article from Market News Reports today, you can see they've also jumped onto the Greenwave Technology Solutions story with the article titled "Hidden Gem Poised for Growth in Massive Market Expected to Reach $368 billion by 2030. See why now could be the best time to start your research on Greenwave Technology Solutions Incorporated, again on the NASDAQ under the ticker GWAV." Now, as we continue to move through this article, you can see they talk about the scrap metal recycling sector on a macro scale here. So the process of transforming scrap metal into valuable products, or really recycling at its core. And the benefits here is it reduces greenhouse gas emissions, it manages energy consumption, and it conserves our natural resources because they're then obviously able to reuse these products or materials in new manufacturing or new products down the road. Now, the global metal recycling market is poised for growth driven by various factors, which include the rise in construction activities, which we're seeing in Europe and Asia Pacific, urbanization, industrialization, and increased government and consumer spending on residential buildings, infrastructure construction, which are all together boosting the metal recycling market. And you can see in the United States alone, the recycling industry employs over 1 million people and currently generates $236 billion annually. So as you can imagine, with an industry of this size and continuing pressure from governments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and be more energy efficient, it really does paint a great picture for the recycling industry over the next few decades. So based on that, they then lay out 7 reasons why they feel Greenwave Technology Solutions could have significant upside potential moving into 2024. So I'll go through each of these points, again laid out by Market News Reports today, and then we can talk about them in a little bit more detail. So the first one here is untapped growth potential. You can again see that $368 billion forecast by 2030, really driven by some of the macro tailwinds we talked about in the earlier paragraph. Now the second point goes to the chart itself, so some more technical analysis on the stock. We saw a nice bounce off the 52-week low at 68 cents on the 31st of August of this year. And as we pointed out in the intro, we then saw that big jump representing a massive move in share price all the way up to $1.10. Now, if we zoom out here, you can see on a 52-week view or a 1-year view, this stock was trading considerably higher. And if we jump back to the article, you can see the 52-week high was set back on the 6th of September of last year, so a little over a year ago now, and that was sitting at $3.24. So if Greenwave Technology Solutions were to retake that 52-week high, that could represent a move in excess of 377%, again based on the share price at the time this article was put together. Now the third point is one we've talked about in previous videos, the fact that this company has an extremely low float. Now that's defined as a company that has between 10 to 20 million shares outstanding. And because Greenwave Technology Solutions has less than 8.8 million shares available, again, as of September 11th, or the time this stat was pulled, it definitely presents an opportunity to see some big swings in share price or heightened volatility from the stock because there's fewer participants in the actual buying and selling process. Now moving on from the chart and some of the more technical analysis, we talked about that downstream system technology and the fact that that just came online here with expectations of $38,000 per day or about $1 million per month and those extremely healthy margins. The fifth point talks about that second automotive shredder that we mentioned on the company website and that press release, which really allows them to revolutionize and increase the capacity of that metal processing. The sixth point talks about their strategic expansion at the Cleveland facility. And then finally, the seventh point is that capital infusion of $15 million that we saw back in August of this year. So now to get to these points in a little bit more detail. So they then bring up the chart here. You can see where they're getting that 377% upside potential figure, along with some of the key metrics. So the daily average price of 84 cents, a 50-day moving average at 89 cents, 100-day moving average at 86 cents, and a 200-day moving average of 94 cents. Now again, as of midday Wednesday, we are currently sitting at 75 cents per share, so you're actually now able to pick up shares at an even better rate than when this article was put together. Now continuing along, we talk about the float here, or the low float situation of Greenwave Technology, specifically the fact that as of September 11th, there was only 8.8 million shares available, with a market cap sub $50 million, making this what's known as a nano cap stock. Now what's nice about these nano cap companies is a lot of the big investment firms or hedge funds won't even look at this size of company. So in many cases, you are able to get in at a retail level well before any of the institutional investors. Now they then go on to talk about some of the big headlines we covered earlier in the video, so that downstream processing system and what it means for the company overall, the remarks from the CEO Danny Meeks that we covered earlier, and the expansion of that metal processing capacity, which they anticipate to drive a substantial revenue increase of about 33%, with margins in excess of 60% on this area of the business. Now on top of that, they've got their Cleveland facility expansion, which is currently generating about $100,000 a month in revenue, and that's expected to ramp up to full volume or full revenue potential within the next 9 to 12 months. So that's another catalyst on the horizon here. And because of some of the advantages this facility has based on its location, including an adjoining railroad and facilitating the transportation of scrap metal, Greenwave again anticipates monthly revenue could ramp up to over $500,000 per month by 2024. They then go on to talk about their balance sheet improvements, so that $15 million raise they did back in August, and the fact that all of these different catalysts are happening at the same time for Greenwave Technology Solutions. Now, I just mentioned the importance of the location of that Cleveland facility, so I wanted to really build that idea out in a little bit more detail. Because it's situated in a region that's known for its thriving manufacturing and industrial activity, Cleveland really is a hotspot or mecca for metal recycling in the United States. And the other nice thing is because Cleveland has a central location, it provides easy access to various different transportation networks, which we just mentioned, including rail and highway, which means more efficient collection, processing, and distribution of recycled metals, which are obviously very expensive to move around, and in turn reduces operational costs for Greenwave. Now, on top of that, the company is also making infrastructure investments at their Cleveland location, which include a shear baler and a total of $15 million worth of investment over the last 18 months alone. Now, the other thing that we haven't yet talked about in today's presentation is Greenwave Technology's new copper extraction system. And this was really made possible through the addition of what's known as an Orbcon PTV balling mill, which enhances their copper recovery yields in their metal recycling operations. So Greenwave really saw this Orbcon balling mill as the final component in their downstream processing system, as they can now extract the valuable copper from the shred residue, improving both revenue and margins. Now there's two other components of this article that I'd recommend you guys take a look at. First is an interview from the CFO talking about the company's operations, expansion plans, and technological advancements. And the second thing is really a background on the leadership team here, specifically Danny Meeks, again, the CEO of the organization, who kicked off his entrepreneurial career at the age of 18 and the formation of Meeks Disposal Corporation back in the year 2000. So for those reasons, you guys, and the points we talked about on the company website, I definitely think Greenwave Technology is worth a look, especially if you're looking for exposure to the recycling sector within your portfolio. Let me know in the comment section below if you've heard of this company before, if you're currently holding shares, and how you think these growth plans are going to pan out for Greenwave Technology Solutions. If you're still watching the video at this point, hopefully you found some value, so make sure you hit the like button. And if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to join. That's all for today, and we'll see you in the next video.